Alright guys, today we're going to take a look at a couple of brand new picks designed by Lock Noob. When he talked about why he designed these, he described them as dynamic picks, and I was a little skeptical. So I ordered them. It took about a week for me because they sold out very quickly after he did his initial description. I finally got a hold of a couple. Before I talk about them though, I was a little skeptical about this whole dynamic thing. So before we get into those picks, let's talk a little bit about why he calls them dynamic and what I found during my use of these over the last week. So let's get right to raking. A lot of us start out with raking and never go on to single pin picking, and I totally get that. And you've probably accumulated quite a collection of rakes like you see here. When we rake, let's grab one of these guys at random. Let's grab this guy right here. Come here, you. I'm trying to get the 25,000. Okay, so I'm going to use this junky lock as kind of a description, and I chose this one because I know it fits into this keyway. So the first technique that almost all of us learn, because it requires no skill, no feel, no nothing, you apply a little bit of tension to the lock, and then you basically slide it in and out. They call this scrubbing. You're scrubbing those pins. Now notice when I rake this in and out, they're all going up to exactly the same height and going back down to exactly the same depth. And that's because the peaks and the troughs on these picks are identical. You got 3 peaks and you got 2 troughs, and that's the limit of how much you're going to influence the pins inside of the lock. Most master locks open when you do this. Very easy. The problem starts to come in when the pins are not within that range, when they're cut a little bit differently. For example, you got a high and you got a low. One of the ways you can get around that is you can start angling this as you roll it in and out. And we call this the rocking technique. And you're basically trying to vary the height of the peak and the depth of that low. You can also change picks. Instead of this one, the worm, you can grab the Bogota, which has a much wider difference between the peak and the trough, and you can slide it in trying to do that. And that works to an extent until you start running into security pins. And a lot of you may be at this point. So let's say you're in there and you're doing your rocking technique and you got some security pins. One of the ways you can defeat security pins with a rake is you slide it in, you apply light tension, and then you push up. And then you lower it back down, you move it a little bit, and I call this the lifting technique. And sometimes you can set those security pins and you'll get an open. But let's say you set them all in the front, and you get to the back, and this happens very often, and you get to the very back and you push, you set one, and suddenly your pick is stuck and you can't get it out. And that's probably because you've hung up a spool of the shear line, and once that spool is hung up, the only way to get your pick back out is to release the tension on all those pins, let them fall back, and then extract your pick. But then you've lost everything. So these are not what I call dynamic picks. Now let's talk about some dynamic picks. And that would be these guys. And these are kind of unusual. First, we look at the handle. These have names, and I've never seen that before. We have the PN75. They call that the Abona. And on the right, we have the PN76, and they call that the Monith. And again, this is a first as far as I'm aware. It has the designer's name laser etched into the handles. Very cool. And let's get to the business end. Let's flip these guys over. And when we look at that, you notice that we have pretty much the same kind of thing, except we have a high and a low and then the trough. So 3 different cuts. And then we have basically this guy. It's half of that pick. And I'll explain why Lock Noob did that in just a moment. But let's start with this guy. So let's say we have a lock that has security pins. It's also got high lows, and we want to use the lifting technique. We slide it in there, we start moving around, and if we're lucky, we'll get an open. We can, by the highs and the lows, we can push those security pins, and we will eventually get an open. However, if we have a security pin in the front that gets trapped on that high one in the back, it was still going to get hung up inside of there. So this pick may not always work on pins with varying cuts and also security pins. That's when we get this guy, and this is the Monith. So we take this guy. Notice we got the low one in the front and the high one in the back. And what I found an effective method is you apply tension, you slide them in, and you start from the front, doing the lifting technique. And if there are security pins in the front, you'll be setting them either with this one, if they're in the very front, or if they're a couple back, it'll be the high one. But the point is we get them set without hanging up the pick, and we move from front to rear setting the pins. If you don't get an open by the time you get to the rear, I found don't continue picking back out. Instead, fully extract the pick and then start from the front again, hopefully catching those pins that you missed the first time. If you do it that way, what you'll do is when you finally set a security pin, that high cut, that high peak will be behind it on the upstream side. So if you finally get that high one set and it's a security pin, you'll be able to extract the pick, and there's only going to be perhaps 1 or 2 additional picks that you'll have to go, or pins that you'll have to go in and pick with a hook. So very useful, and that, I think, is why he calls these dynamic. Now, dynamic and also in the fact that if you want to take these guys and do the normal scrubbing, you can do it because you've got the same high lows. If you want to take this pick and do the rocking, you can do it. It works the same as all of the other picks. Or if you want to try the technique, the lifting technique that I just described, this is the pick to go to. So basically everything can be done with these two guys, unless there's a lot of extreme high-low, then you have to fall back on these. All right, anyway, that is the Abona and the Monith. So the PN75 and the PN76 designed by Lock Noob. 2 more options that we have to add to our pick kits. All right, guys. I know that if I offer the giveaway this week of only 2 picks, I got nobody's interest, and I get that. So instead, during this coronavirus, like a lot of you guys, I go surfing around all the websites. And I was looking around, and this is what I've come up with for this week's giveaway. This is every single rake on MultiPick's site. So on this side is the entire family of wave rakes. In the center here is the entire family of Bogota rakes. And I've also thrown in a city rake right here, or L rake. And then on the right are all of the other assorted rakes made by MultiPick. In the back there, you see one made by Sparrows. I'm also throwing in these 4 guys, and these are basically identical profiles in both 25,000. So we have the Worm and then the 3-humper Bogota in both 15 and 25th. I'm throwing those in along with the brand new PN75 and PN76 designed by Lock Noob. That's not enough. I've gone ahead and thrown in some tensioners too. All of the bottom of the keyway and the entire set of top of the keyway as well. So if you can't get a lock open with these, yeah, you probably can't get it open without a hacksaw or a bolt cutter. Anyway, guys, appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay legal. Lock Noob, thanks for coming up with these 2 brand new dynamic designs. Appreciate that. Stay safe, guys. Stay legal. If you want to know how to register for the free giveaway, easy. Stick around. I'll tell you how to do it. Thanks, guys. All you need to do is navigate to locklab.com, the tribal website, and scroll down in the middle of the page. You'll see all the giveaway buttons, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But the one you're looking for is the weekend review giveaway, purple band. Just click on it. It'll take you to the registration page. Again, scroll to the bottom, put in a good email address. So if you win, I can get in touch with you, let you know. Put in a username, doesn't matter what it is, and click submit. When you're done, you'll get a green check mark confirming your entry. Thanks, guys.